You've heard of the 2023 Titan submersible disaster, but did you know that 50 years before the fatal attempt to investigate the Titanic wreckage, another manned mission to the ocean floor incurred similar horrors in the deep blue? On June 17, 1973, what began as a routine mission to recover a fish trap from an artificial reef off the coast of Florida turned into a harrowing 31-hour ordeal that ultimately claimed 2 lives. The submersible, designed by the renowned inventor Edwin Link and operated by the Smithsonian Institution, became entangled in the wreckage of a sunken ship 360 feet below the surface. Today, from Maritime Mishaps, we take a closer look at the disaster of the Johnson Sea Link and the terrors suffered by those aboard such a unique, if not ill-fated vessel. In early 1971, the Smithsonian Institution expanded its research capabilities with the addition of a cutting-edge underwater vessel and substantial funding to launch an extensive marine exploration program. This advanced submersible, christened the Johnson Sea Link, came to fruition through the collaborative efforts of its ingenious creator, Edwin A. Link, and generous sponsor, J. Seward Johnson. Operations for the Johnson Sea Link were coordinated from a dedicated support vessel anchored at the Marine Science Center in Linkport, situated along Florida's inland waterway in close proximity to Fort Pierce. This submersible served as a cornerstone for investigations led by the Smithsonian's Office of Environmental Sciences. By acquiring this state-of-the-art underwater craft, the Smithsonian joined an elite circle of autonomous research institutions equipped with their own submersible for marine exploration. Edwin A. Link is a renowned innovator with an impressive portfolio of over 27 patents, primarily in the realms of aviation and marine engineering. Among his most celebrated inventions is the Link Flight Trainer, conceived all the way back in 1929, which was instrumental in training countless pilots during World War II. Beyond his aeronautical pursuits, Link has long been captivated by oceanography. His association with the Smithsonian began in the 1950s, when its foundation provided financial support to the institution's National Air and Space Museum. As time progressed, Link redirected his focus towards undersea exploration, designing various oceanographic instruments and vessels. His accomplishments in this field include the development of the Sea Diver, a vessel dedicated to ocean research, and significant contributions to the underwater excavation of the submerged city of Port Royal in Jamaica. Constructed from a combination of aluminum and acrylic materials, this remarkable craft is engineered to descend to impressive depths of over 1,000 feet while accommodating both a navigator and a researcher. A standout feature of the vessel was its transparent acrylic dome, offering both occupants an unobstructed panoramic view of the aquatic environment. The Johnson Sea Link emerged as an enhanced iteration of Edwin Link's pioneering submersible, the Deep Diver. The Deep Diver had broken new ground as the first vessel designated for lockout diving, a technique allowing crew members to exit the submersible and perform tasks while submerged at significant depths. However, in 1968, the Bureau of Ships raised concerns about the deep diver's safety for deep-sea operations, particularly in frigid waters. The primary issue stemmed from the use of inappropriate steel in certain components, which became brittle and unreliable in extremely cold conditions. Addressing these shortcomings, the Johnson Sea Link introduced several innovative features. It accommodated a 4-person crew split between 2 distinct compartments. The aft section was specifically engineered for lockout diving, enabling a pair of divers to undergo pressurization, matching the surrounding ocean environment. This allowed them to exit the vessel and carry out underwater operations safely. In the forward section, the aforementioned 5-foot diameter acrylic sphere housed the pilot and an additional observer. Despite all of these advancements, the Johnson Sea Link was not without its minor drawbacks. The installation of a climate control unit on the right side of the acrylic sphere created a small area of reduced visibility for the pilot. While this design choice slightly limited the pilot's field of view, it did not significantly compromise the overall functionality and revolutionary nature of the submersible. The Johnson Sea Link measured 23 feet in length and can move at speeds of up to 1.75 knots, which is roughly 2 miles per hour. It was designed to operate at depths of up to 3,000 feet or 910 meters, making it a significant advancement over the deep diver in terms of both safety and capabilities. Unfortunately for everyone involved, those safety features would soon be put to the test in the most tragic and terrifying way possible. On June 17, 1973, the Johnson Sea Link, after 2 years of successful operations, embarked on a mission that would end in tragedy. The submersible launched from the Sea Diver, Edwin Link's research vessel, approximately 15 miles off Key West, Florida's coast. This expedition, designated Dive 130, aimed to recover a fish trap from the wreckage of the USS Fred T. Barry, a destroyer deliberately sunk to create an artificial reef. The 4-man team consisted of veteran pilot Archibald Jock Menzies, ichthyologist Robert Meek, Edwin Clayton Link, and submersible pilot Albert Smokey Stover. A subsequent U.S. Coast Guard investigation revealed that the crew's preparation for this high-risk dive was alarmingly inadequate. Link and Stover, positioned in the rear compartment, were dressed casually in shorts and t-shirts, having no intention of performing a lockout dive. Meek, situated in the forward compartment with Menzies, even commented on the cold temperatures they would encounter underwater. Despite this cautionary remark, the mission proceeded as planned. The operation took a turn for the worse when, around 9:45 a.m., the Johnson Sea Link became ensnared in a cable within the Fred T. Barry wreckage, 360 feet beneath the ocean surface. The Sea Diver promptly alerted the U.S. Coast Guard and requested Navy assistance, though the crew initially claimed they were not in immediate peril. In response, the submarine rescue vessel USS Tringa was dispatched to the scene. Confronted with this predicament, the team initially contemplated using the lockout function to allow either Link or Stover to exit the submersible and manually disentangle it. However, concerns about the risks of oxygen toxicity for the occupants of the diving chamber rendered this option too hazardous. The decision makers, including Edwin Link, who was overseeing the operation, chose to await the Tringa's arrival. Soon after, complications arose within the Johnson Sea Link. The carbon dioxide scrubber in the pilot's compartment malfunctioned, causing CO2 levels to escalate. In an improvised attempt to address the issue, Menzies resourcefully poured the carbon dioxide absorbent material, a concoction of barium and lime called Barolime, into his shirt and held it in front of the air conditioning fan, which helped to temporarily lower the CO2 concentration. During this incident, experts estimated that CO2 concentrations could be maintained at safe levels for 42 hours in the pilot section and 61 hours in the diving area. However, the diving compartment's temperature, which had plummeted to match the surrounding ocean, significantly reduced the efficacy of its CO2 scrubber. While the acrylic sphere housing the pilot retained more warmth, the aluminum-constructed diver compartment cooled rapidly, potentially reaching a chilling 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius by the evening of June 17th. The USS Tringa arrived at the scene at 4:15 p.m., but divers' attempts to reach the Johnson Sea Link were thwarted by the USS Fred T. Barry's wreckage. As night fell, the situation deteriorated further. By 10 p.m., the CO2 scrubber in the diver compartment had had ceased functioning completely, forcing Link and Stover to rely on air-supplied masks. The team reconsidered the option of a lockout dive, but the frigid temperatures and the effects of breathing a helium-oxygen mixture had already compromised the men's abilities. With the internal pressure matching the deep ocean environment, approximately 12 standard atmospheres, their physical condition continued to decline. At 1:12 a.m. on June 18th, Menzies reported that Link and Stover were experiencing seizures. Shortly after, all communication with the rear compartment ceased. Subsequent rescue attempts, including the deployment of a roving diving bell and a sonar-equipped submersible, proved unsuccessful. On the afternoon of June 18th, the commercial salvage vessel A.B. Wood II arrived, equipped with an underwater camera mounted on a maneuverable platform. Using this technology, rescuers managed to attach a grappling hook to the Johnson Sea Link and successfully raised it to the surface at 4:53 p.m. Menzies and Meek, occupying the forward compartment, were immediately transferred to the decompression chamber aboard the Tringa. However, the pressurized state of the rear compartment prevented immediate access to Link and Stover. The submersible was then moved to the Sea Diver, where rescuers could observe Link and Stover through the compartment's windows, but detected no signs of life. Efforts to warm the compartment and introduce a helium-oxygen mixture proved futile. On the morning of June 19th, medical professionals declared both men deceased, attributing their deaths to carbon dioxide poisoning. Their remains were subsequently transported to the Florida Keys Memorial Hospital in Key West for post-mortem examinations, which confirmed respiratory acidosis due to excessive CO2 exposure as the cause of death. The final hours for the crew members who lost their lives were marked by a gradual and distressing decline. Their demise was the result of a progressive system failure within the submersible, leading to an increasingly toxic air supply. The ultimate cause of death, the aforementioned respiratory acidosis, is a severe medical condition characterized by an overwhelming buildup of carbon dioxide in the body. This excess CO2 disrupts the blood's delicate chemical balance, causing a dangerous decrease in pH levels. Within the confined, chilly space of the Johnson Sea Link, Stover and Link faced the grim reality of escalating CO2 concentrations. As their respiratory systems struggled to expel this harmful gas, their blood chemistry began to alter. The initial stages may have been marked by feelings of unease and mental fog as they grappled with the subtle onset of this life-threatening process. Physical changes likely included a noticeable discoloration of their skin, ranging from bluish to purplish hues, reflecting the lack of oxygen. They would have experienced intense cranial pain and increasingly laborious breathing. As the situation deteriorated, the effects of respiratory acidosis intensified. Their cognitive functions would have further diminished, leading to a state of confusion and disorientation. Involuntary muscle contractions may have set in as the acidic blood interfered with normal neurological functions. An overwhelming sense of exhaustion would have made each moment a struggle to remain alert and coherent. Trapped in the pressurized, frigid chamber of the submersible, the feeling of helplessness must have been profound. Motor skills would have deteriorated, making even simple movements challenging. In the final cruel phase of respiratory acidosis, they likely experienced convulsions before slipping into unconsciousness. This gradual descent towards death would have been both physically and psychologically harrowing, as they fought for each breath, aware of their increasingly dire circumstances. For Stover and Link, their confinement in the submersible left no avenue for escape from this agonizing process. With life support systems failing to maintain breathable air, their bodies succumbed to the toxicity of their own exhalations. The knowledge that rescue efforts were underway, yet potentially too late, would have only compounded their distress. As time dragged on, the cold of the deep sea penetrated their bodies, while the increasing acidity of their blood left them powerless against the inevitable. The inquiry into the Johnson Sea Link incident, which resulted in the tragic deaths of Edwin Link and Albert Stover, revealed a complex interplay of factors contributing to the disaster. The primary cause was attributed to pilot error, with the investigation concluding that inadequate assessment of the surrounding environment led to the submersible's entanglement with the USS Fred T. Barry wreckage. This lapse in judgment may have stemmed from distractions, such as unresolved electrical issues and malfunctioning equipment just prior to the dive. The inability of rescue teams to free the submersible in time played a crucial role in the fatalities as well. While rescue efforts were executed, they were hindered by equipment limitations and challenging circumstances. However, the report emphasized that these obstacles were not due to any individual shortcomings of the rescue personnel. Notably, the Johnson Sea Link's unique design, with its irregular hull shape and external protrusions, increased its vulnerability to entanglement and underwater debris, like that found on the Fred T. Barry wreck. The investigation criticized the crew's seemingly nonchalant approach to dive number 130. Despite the inherent risks of their mission, the team appeared insufficiently prepared. For instance, the pilot opted to rely on personal perception rather than proper instrumentation to detect unsafe CO2 levels, while the divers seemed to underestimate the impact of cold water temperatures, indicating a general underappreciation of the mission's dangers. Rescue efforts were further complicated by poor visibility, which led to confusion during initial attempts to free the submersible. The Johnson Sea Link's limited maneuverability, while restrained, also posed challenges. The entanglement likely occurred at either the aftermost reference marker flagpole or an unidentified cable suspended from the wreck. The report emphasized the need for safer scuttling practices, recommending the removal of potential entanglement sources such as wires and antennas from ships intended to serve as artificial reefs. With the growing popularity of these underwater structures, the risk of accidents involving submersibles is likely to increase without proper precautions. Two critical missed opportunities that could have potentially saved Link and Stover were identified as well. First, a method to heat the CO2 absorbent marylime in the diver's compartment might have prolonged their survival. Second, earlier arrival of the salvage vessel A.B. Wood II with its camera system, or a more efficient operation, could have resulted in a successful rescue before the men succumbed to hypothermia and CO2 poisoning. While the incident was tragic, the investigation found no fault with the U.S. Coast Guard or other government agencies. Instead, it concluded that the disaster resulted from a combination of factors, including equipment limitations, inadequate preparation, and the inherent risks associated with deep-sea operations. The Smithsonian Institution, in addition to the U.S. Coast Guard's official investigation, conducted its own internal examination of the Johnson Sea Link incident. This thorough review culminated in a detailed 121-page document dated December 21, 1973. The Smithsonian's internal inquiry yielded several significant findings. It determined that a series of crucial engineering and operational decisions collectively led to the submersible's entrapment and subsequent loss of life. Nevertheless, the review maintained that the Johnson Sea Link was fundamentally a reliable and secure system, albeit still in its developmental phase at the time of the 1973 incident. The report suggested that with appropriate modifications and strict adherence to safety protocols, the craft could continue to operate without significant risk. Notably, the report commended the actions of the crew, particularly pilot Archibald Menzies and observer Robert Meek, as well as the rescue team. It concluded that, despite their valiant efforts, uncontrollable circumstances ultimately resulted in the tragic outcome. In the aftermath of the accident, Edwin Link, profoundly affected by the event, devoted the following 2 years to developing an unmanned rescue system. His efforts culminated in the creation of the Cabled Observation and Rescue Device, or CORD, specifically engineered to assist in freeing trapped submersibles in future incidents. Despite the tragedy, the Johnson Sea Link program persevered. A second submersible, nearly identical to its predecessor, was launched in 1975. Both vessels continued to operate for many years, making significant contributions to underwater research and recovery missions. Notable achievements include the exploration of the USS Monitor wreck in 1977 and their crucial role in recovering debris from the Space Shuttle Challenger following its 1986 explosion. These submersibles concluded their service in 2011, marking the end of decades of valuable scientific contributions, despite undeniable tragedy, a microcosm of mankind's unrelenting pursuit of maritime excellence.